Now, I've heard quite a few creepypasta stories over my time here on YouTube, but this one might just take the cake. So let me explain what happened. It was late at night. My friend Tom had just finished watching a horror movie when he decided that maybe he should get some sleep before his shift at the gas station tomorrow morning. He went into his bathroom to wash his face and brush his teeth, the usual stuff. And as he looked in the mirror, he saw something horrifying behind him. It was a porcelain doll hanging from the shower curtain. It had brown hair, dirt on its dress, and what appeared to be blood coming out of its mouth. Now, being a normal person, Tom screamed and ran out of the bathroom. He took a deep breath and slowly walked back in. When he turned around, the doll was gone. Thinking he was just tired from working too much, Tom shrugged and went back to brushing his teeth. But then the same thing happened. The doll appeared in the mirror again. Terrified, Tom stayed in his room for the rest of the night, not wanting to go to the bathroom. When morning came, he got ready for work and left the house. As soon as he closed the front door, the doll appeared on his windowsill. It was staring directly at him. Tom tried to convince himself that it was just a doll, but when he looked closer, he noticed the mouth wasn't stitched shut. It was actually a slit. This is where the story gets really crazy. Tom drove to work as fast as he could, needing to tell someone about the doll. But no matter how fast he drove, the doll was always on his windowsill. It would sometimes disappear, but then reappear on another window further down the road. By the time Tom arrived at work, he was shaking and crying. He told his manager everything that had happened. Manager said, "Okay," and that was it. I guess he didn't believe him. And honestly, who would? I mean, what are you gonna say to someone? Dude, there's a doll following me everywhere I go. Oh, and also it's smiling and its mouth isn't sewn shut. Isn't that weird? Anyways, Tom quit on the spot. He couldn't drive around all day with a killer doll in his window. Now, Tom needed to get home. But when he got in his car and started driving, the doll was already there. It was sitting in the passenger seat. He screamed and floored it. He sped through town, turning every corner as fast as he could. He even hit a couple speed bumps, but he still couldn't lose the doll. After a while, Tom stopped and hid in a grocery store. He thought that if he stayed inside, the doll wouldn't find him. But when he finally came out, it was sitting outside on the hood of his car. It opened the door and said, "Mind if I join you?" Before Tom could respond, the doll climbed in and started driving the car. Tom screamed at the top of his lungs and held onto the dashboard for his dear life. Suddenly, the doll slammed on the brakes and said, "We're here." Tom looked out the window and they were parked outside his house. He quickly unbuckled his seatbelt and ran inside. He locked the doors and made sure all the windows were closed. He was safe, but when he opened his front door, the doll was waiting for him. "I see you've made quite the mess," she said, picking up a dirty teddy bear and throwing it across the room. "Why don't we clean up?" Now terrified, Tom ran upstairs to hide. Hours passed and Tom fell asleep on his bed. When he woke up, he checked downstairs to see if the doll was still there. It was. She was sitting on the couch watching TV. As Tom descended the stairs, the doll turned her head, looked at him and smiled. Then she said, "Oh, I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm your new mother." At that moment, Tom's worst nightmare came true. He wished he never questioned what was behind the shower curtain that fateful night. Now, if you want to hear more scary stories, stay tuned. But until then, here's another story. One day, a man and his son were driving down a country road when they saw a group of kids standing by a broken down tractor. "Hey, can you help us fix this?" they asked. "Sure," said the father. He had his son get out of the car so he could meet the children. But once they were close enough, one of the boys stepped forward and asked, "Do you know what time it is?" Confused, the man replied, It's about 3 o'clock." "No, you silly goose," the boy laughed. "It's Halloween." The man realized the children had been covered in mud and hay. Their faces were painted and their eyes were shining with mischief. They had scared him. Then the man and his son continued on their way. They turned down a narrow path and arrived at a big white house. The front porch was empty, but the lights were on. A woman opened the door and yelled, "Trick or treat." The man responded, "But it's only 3 o'clock." The woman smiled and said, "That's right. You're early. Why don't you come in and wait a bit?" She invited them in and offered them some candy. The man and his son sat on the couch for a few minutes. Then suddenly, the man felt a strong urge to use the bathroom. He excused himself and went into the basement. As he walked down the steps, he saw two figures in the darkness. They were whispering and pointing at him. Startled, he turned around and tried to walk back up the stairs. But just then, the two figures lunged forward. Gotcha, they shouted. The man screamed and stumbled backward. He fell down the stairs and landed hard on the floor. As he lay there in pain, he heard the voices again. This game is getting boring, one of them said. Let's end it. They approached the man and leaned close. What's your name? They asked. He coughed and replied, Tom. Well, Tom, we're going to kill you, they said. Then they began stabbing him in the chest. Just then, the basement door creaked open and a light bulb turned on. Standing in the doorway was the woman from earlier. She looked at the two attackers and asked, What did I tell you about inviting guests into our special place? The attacker stepped aside and said, But he came down the stairs on his own. The woman sighed and shook her head. That doesn't matter. You know the rules. We can't hurt him. She turned to the man and offered a hand. Would you like to play a real game now? She asked. Tom nodded. The woman led him upstairs and sat him down on the couch. She put a box of crayons and a drawing pad in front of him. Draw whatever you want, she said. Tom stared at the paper for a moment. Then he began drawing a picture of the woman and her friends. He drew the basement, the stairs and the two stabbings. Once he was done, he colored it all black. That's a nice drawing, the woman said. Thank you, Tom replied. Can I color yours now? The woman screamed and backed away. No, don't do that, she cried. But it was too late. Tom grabbed a crayon and began coloring the woman's face black. Please stop, she begged. But Tom didn't listen. He kept coloring and coloring until the entire page was filled with darkness. The woman stood up and ran away. Tom watched her go and smiled. He had finally outsmarted those stupid kids. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Creepypasta Stories. Make sure to leave a like if you did. And remember to subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys next time.